afternoon, Niner fans. How are we doing? It's Monday, and you know what? We're kind of making this a regular thing. My boy Ted on the stream right before we came on the live. Breaking news: Russell Wilson's getting released from the Broncos. That has nothing to do with the 49ers, so we're not going to talk about it. But it was crazy. We're sitting here backstage, getting ready for the show. Boom! Breaking news: Russell Wilson released from the Broncos. The moment his $245 million guarantee was about to become guaranteed, they cut him. That's crazy work. How the heck are you feeling, Ted? How are we doing? Welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me, Raj. Yeah, crazy, but I would say not that unexpected, especially after they benched him right before him playing one more game last season would have guaranteed some money for this season. And, I think that upset Russ. And I think from then on, the writing was on the wall that he wouldn't be back this year. But yeah, Denver Broncos getting shady with him 2 times now.
Crazy. And it's going to open up some storylines here with free agency. We'll talk about free agency in a minute. But yeah, that's crazy work, man.
It is. Daniel Barry, get out of my head. Sports Highlights says Wilson to Falcons as one of the teams we talked about. Maybe Falcons, maybe Steelers. Pretty crazy. We'll see what happens.
But in Ninerland, there was actually a lot of hirings this weekend and today. So most noteworthy today, the 49ers hired former Seattle Seahawks linebackers, former Pro Bowl linebacker, KJ Wright, to be the assistant linebackers coach, right? And he's a defensive quality control coach. So we'll talk about today. That was the big signing today, the big news today. LOB coming to the Bay. Look at that. It's pretty cool. The 49ers have taken the rivals over the last couple of years. Remember, they brought Richard Sherman. Now they got KJ Wright onto the Bay. And it kind of makes sense because this weekend, and we'll talk about this, Nick Sorensen was hired as the defensive coordinator, the internal promotion. And you kind of hinted towards that this last week when we talked about it. Your thought was it was going to be an internal hire. You said Bullocks, but, tomato, right? And Nick Sorensen coached for the Seattle Seahawks a couple years back. He was actually their secondary coach. So the LOB vibe, he coached, KJ Wright a couple years ago. So it kind of goes hand in hand. He gets a guy that he's familiar with onto the staff. So it makes sense there. And then they also hired the guy I thought was going to be the defense coordinator, Brandon Staley, but as the assistant head coach. He's more of going to be the mentor for Sorensen because Sorensen's never been in a DC role. This is the biggest role he's ever had in his coaching career. So, you got to get a guy to kind of hold the other guy's hand a little bit. So what do you think? What was your grand takeaway from all these coaching hires? Let's start with the DC.
Yeah, I mean, I like we said backstage, we're both right. In a way, we're both wrong, though, too, because neither one really was given 100% of the reins. And that's why in my thumbnail for the show today, I put up their 2 pictures and I just said no confidence because I feel like that's what Kyle and the front office displayed. No confidence in Sorensen to bring in Staley. No confidence in Staley to not bring him in just as the DC on his own. It's sort of like there's that saying, Raj, and I say this a lot to people that have 2 teams in their Twitter or X profile. And I'm like, look, dude, if you like 2 teams, you really don't love either one. So I'm going to say our front office doesn't love either of these cats. I think we all know now it sounded like they really wanted Belichick. I wanted Vrabel. I even wanted Dave Merritt, from the Chiefs, kind of ahead of any of these options. But hey, maybe they'll prove us wrong. Maybe Nick Sorensen will be great. We won't even need Brandon Staley, and it'll run. I think they also both could be a 1-year stopgap until Saleh gets canned, or Saleh and Ulbrich would be out from the Jets, and then they might not be so standoffish about coming to work here if they're out of a job. So
it could be right. I mean, it could be a 1-year stopgap. I mean, Kyle likes to keep things the same. John Lynch said, they want to keep things the same. They know who they like. They know their identity. So it makes sense that they kept it in-house. You got to be happy for Sorensen. But at the end of the day, I think me and you both thought they'd get the big splashy hire, right? And I think that's what the Niner fans wanted. And so I could see a lot of fans were kind of initially a little upset. But as time kind of passed, I think we've kind of accepted it and realized, okay, it's not the the bad, signing. I think he was the best signing of all the coaches that were interviewed, that we know were interviewed. And as news has kind of followed since, we know that they tried to get Albrecht, but the Jets weren't going to release him to be DC for another team. Like, there's no way to go and say, okay, yeah, we're okay with you taking the same job on another team. No, they're not going to do that. If you would have got promoted to head coach, yeah, maybe, but not to be just the same position. So the 49ers also reached out to Spags from the Chiefs, and the Chiefs were smart and saying, no, we're locking him up. He just beat you in the Super Bowl. We're going to make sure we keep that guy. So it's not like the Niners didn't try to go for the big names. Who knows what they did with Vrabel or some of these other guys? There's no reports on that, but I'm sure that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan at least called the big guns. End of the day, they went with the safer pick. Ulbrich knows the team. He's coached under, Salah, so he knows the system. Maybe you're right. Maybe they're waiting for Salah later down the line, but DeMeco Ryans was the DC before. I said it before. Big shoes to fill, and I think that they like the familiarity Sorensen brings to the team. And again, they are afraid of change. They don't want to change. So you bring in the guy that knows the system, but they're tweaking a little bit because you bring in Brandon Staley, who I think they really wanted him as DC. But like you said, I don't think they loved him as DC because I don't think he had enough swagger or control of this team. He would have kind of been ridiculed. And now he just gets to be the mentor, the guy that has a lot of defensive experience under his belt. And Sorensen's the first time DC. So this guy's going to kind of guide him. He's going to hold his hand a little bit, and he can help, draw the play calls up and the scheme during the week. They're going to kind of go hand in hand. You have two guys to do one guy's job. And I think that was kind of a bar, Ted, that you said you don't love the one guy, so you get two guys you kind of like. They probably like those guys, but I don't know if they absolutely love them. But you get a guy with some new insight, Brandon Staley, who is a little different from Sorensen because he's got your scheme, in his mind. So now you got this guy Staley. He might give you a few different looks, and also he's gonna maybe be the guy there. Let's say fourth quarter comes, tense situation. Brandon Staley has no qualms going for it on fourth down. Maybe he's gonna say, "Hey, Kyle, why don't we go for it on fourth down? Why don't we go for it on fourth down?" I don't know. I wasn't too thrilled with these hires, but I wasn't like mad about the hires. I think they were safe, picks that the Niners are okay with. They respect these guys. And at the end of the day, Kyle Shanahan's coaching tree is pretty damn good. I think he understands that these guys can get the job done, but they're not like the home run, knock it out of the park. And if the 49ers don't win the Super Bowl, then it's just two other guys. But with that being said, Brandon Staley and Kyle Shanahan are two of the biggest football nerds in the NFL. So you have two nerdy guys that are going to be coaching out of their mind out there. So I think that's why he likes Brandon Staley. He reminds him of himself.
Yeah, hopefully Nick Sorensen is a little more of a rah-rah guy like Saleh or DeMeco Ryans. And James Janal brought up a good point there. He said it was a clash of scheme. And there's some truth to that, because Vrabel and Belichick are both more 3-4 guys. And we're pretty big on the 4-3, where you got Bosa as like that prototypical D end for the 4-3 system. So it would be tough to switch schemes. And so I guess I can't get too mad that we went with continuity. But it's still disappointing a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I agree. Like I think we were all waiting for the big name, and then it was kind of like, oh, it went in-house. It was just kind of lackluster. It was like, it didn't hit that right. And then, it took them a long time, right? They went 16 days on this journey to find a DC. It was a lot of secret information. We didn't get to hear a lot of noise. And then we started slowly getting to hear who's interviewing. And then, again, if you look at all the people that they interviewed, I think Sorensen was the best guy out of the bunch. So we'll see. We'll see if the 49ers got it right. At the end of the day, this team is very talented, Ted. This team has some of the best players on defense. So it's not like this defense is just going to be crummy and fall apart, The 49ers defense did kind of take a little bit of a tailspin last year towards the end of the season. Playoffs, they let up a lot more points than we expected. Run game was getting gashed. So Sorensen has a big job in front of him, and I still think that, DeMeco Ryans leaving was huge. That created such a big void, and whoever was going to take that spot had a lot of pressure. And now Sorensen inherits that pressure. So, and there's a lot of people that felt that Steve Wilks shouldn't have been hired. So there's going to be more pressure on Sorensen to nail this. And I think that's another reason why they said, okay, we'll bring Staley. So we have two guys. We got to get this right. So it was kind of again, it was just two guys that have a lot of different defensive philosophies, but you bring them together. And in the end, hopefully all those looks, because you have the same looks that you've been using, with DeMeco and Wilkes and everybody. And now you have a little bit of a different perspective. So now you should have all the perspectives to beat all the teams is what hopefully happens. But we'll see what happens. Today, as I mentioned, KJ Wright, former Seahawks linebacker, was hired to be the 49ers assistant linebacker coach. Now, we know the 49ers linebackers are usually their strength of this defense. Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. They've drafted some really young players last year, Winters and Jalen Graham. I like this hire. I thought this was a really good hire. He announced it on his podcast. I'm going to play the video, but I am very excited. Again, he played under Nick Sorensen when he was the secondary coach there. So this is a good hire for Sorensen. Again, bringing someone he's familiar with, and this guy's a great mind. I don't know if you've seen his podcast, but he really knows ball. He's a smart guy, and I think he's going to be a very good addition to this team. I could see him in a few years being promoted to maybe the full-time linebackers coach, maybe even DC down the line. Who knows? This is a very good football mind, in my opinion. He was a good player. I'm going to play this video. This was KJ Wright earlier today announcing that he became the assistant linebackers coach.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of KJ All Day. And I'm sure you guys heard the news by now. And yes, it is true. I am the new linebacker assistant coach / defensive quality control coach of the San Francisco 49ers. I am thoroughly excited. I am really, really happy for this opportunity. I'm really, really happy for the Niners organization believing in me, trusting me with their franchise, and compete against those guys since day one. My first ever NFL game was against the Niners. And I remember after that game, my dad coming up to me saying, "Man, you think you can play in this league?" I said, "Heck yeah, I know I can play in this league." It was going against the Niners. And here I am 13, 14 years down the road, about to be coaching for them. And so to Kyle Shanahan, to John Lynch, the 49er faithful, I'm excited. I'm ready to roll. It's going to be really, really fun. And to the fans, y'all knew this. Y'all know listening to me, y'all know when I did my KJ's Corner, when I'm just talking about ball, this is where my heart is. My heart is in coaching. My heart is in building something special, teamwork, camaraderie, going through the ups, going through the downs, finding a game plan to be successful. Like this is what I do. This is what I've been called to do. And even when I was a player, we used to have our Tuesday meetings. Who you think got the cowboy clicker? I'm running the meetings, telling guys what to see, what to look for, what this team does well, how we can expose them. I've been doing this since I was playing in the NFL. But to now actually put that coaching hat on, get that whistle, create drills, really bring out the best in anybody I come in contact with, I'm ready. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Man, woo! I like this hire. Every time you can just tell he's so ready to go and coach. What do you think, man? What do you think?
Sorry about that. I think it's a great hire. I haven't wanted him when the Seahawks released him. He was kind of looking around before he retired, and I thought he'd be a good pickup for the 49ers then. I think even better as a coach. It's interesting because for a long time we were sort of like this linebacker factory, and we were just churning out linebackers. And then recently, as DeMeco became a DC and he couldn't maybe be as hands-on with the linebackers, it seems like we've slipped a little, and I think KJ will help restore us to our former glory. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I agree. I like this comment from Red Jet. Shout out to the chat, everybody. She says, I think he's going to breathe that spark that I hope so, especially with players out and coming back. They will really gravitate towards him. I agree. I feel like that energy, because he's a new coach, you can sense he's like so gung-ho. He's ready to be like, get those. What do you say? I can't wait to make drills. I can't wait to go out there and teach these guys. Like they got young linebackers, right? Obviously, Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, they're the vets, but you got a lot of young guys, and now you're going to infuse your, enthusiasm and really be out there. He's green, man. He's just so hyped up. So I like it. And he was a hell of a player during the Seattle. I mean, I hate Seattle, but you remember those rivalries with the LOB, man. He was one of them dogs on that team, him and Bobby Wagner. Whew, so he's going to be coming with everything he needs to be, and just he's fun. I saw another clip. I want to play this clip because he really, again, he just knows ball, man. He supported the Niners a lot this season. I know he's a former Seattle Seahawk, but he keeps it 100. There was a time when Brock Purdy, I mean, everybody hates on Brock Purdy, right? But when Cam Newton came out and he said the whole game manager, I mean, the narrative was going crazy. Everybody was talking about this. KJ Wright on his podcast actually came out and defended Brock Purdy. I got to play this clip because this is our new defensive coordinator, ladies and gentlemen.
Is Brock Purdy the real deal?
Man, I'm so sick of this question. Yes, he the real deal. He been the real deal since he came on the scene. All he done was win since day one.
But he's surrounded by Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers, all this stuff. And when they don't have the Debos and they don't have the guys in there, it seemed like he goes from Superman to Clark Kent.
If you Josh Allen, take away a Stephon Diggs, take away a James Cook, he won't be the same either. The man had some guys that was banged up. His defense gave up 30 some odd points.
And funny you say that because when Geno Smith doesn't have DK right there, what does he do? Geno Smith relies on the rookies, 2 rookies as a matter of fact. So something tells me that Brock Purdy ain't as good as your last thought.
We live in such a reactionary world. Oh, he lose 2 games, all of a sudden he's Mr. Irrelevant again. The man has done phenomenal. And if he doesn't get hurt last year in the playoffs, potentially this is a Super Bowl winning football team.
Brock Purdy ain't been Purdy.
Woo! What do you think, man?
I love it. I love that he's defending Brock. I agree with his sentiments. I'm not going to compare him to Josh Allen, but I do agree that any quarterback who loses their best weapons, I always said a quarterback needs at least decent protection and at least reliable weapons. And ideally, at least a couple elite weapons, I think, is really what you need to excel anymore in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great hire. It was unexpected. I didn't see this one coming out of the, woodworks. But at the end of the day, I feel like this really strengthens their defensive coaching staff. Now, again, I know Sorensen wasn't the home run hit, but it was a good hire. I think he was definitely a solid candidate. He's been around the team for a couple of years now. So he understands the scheme. I think Kyle trusts him. And then Brandon Staley, I know it's not the guy that everybody wanted, but he understands defense, and I think he's just going to infuse some new insights, and he can guide Sorensen a little bit. And, overall, what do you grade the hiring? So they hired 3 coaches this weekend, Sorensen, Brandon Staley, assistant coach, and KJ Wright is the assistant linebackers coach. So if you had to give him a grade, what would you grade the whole situation overall?
I give Sorensen a B-.
Okay.
Brandon Staley, I'll be nice and say C.
Okay.
And for KJ, I mean, like A-, A. I mean,
A-.
I'll say A-.
Okay. I like it. So I got to go B with Sorensen. Again, it wasn't the splashy pick, but he knows the system. He's smart. He understands the concepts. I think it was, if you're going to go in-house, you get the best guy in-house. I guess he was the best guy in-house. Now, Brandon Staley, it's an assistant head coach position. We didn't have to hire him as a DC or a coach or anything like that. He's just there to help. Anthony Lynn, he was the assistant coach. I don't remember him really doing much, so maybe he's just there to help with X's and O's during the week in preparation. Anthony Lynn, maybe he did more than we thought because we don't know. We're not behind the scenes. But it's just the name that gets everybody pissed off, Brandon Staley, just because he's associated with this team. I think overall, the hire, he wasn't a DC, he wasn't a head coach or anything, but I'm going to give it maybe a B-. I think, as the assistant head coach, I'm okay with it. If he would have been the DC, I would have went straight F. I would have not been happy. But I think it's okay because he's just going to be there to help with defensive strategies. And he actually understands defense. He was a DC, et cetera, et cetera. So I go B- on that. Now, the KJ Wright hire, I think it's an A. We talked about why. He was a really, really good player. He understands everything. He's so hyped up. I think he has potential to become a really good coach in this league. So overall, I'll give the whole shebang maybe a B overall. I'm not too upset about it, but I wasn't overly oh my God, they got Nick Sorensen. I didn't wake up and go, all right, we got Nick Sorensen, guys. I was like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I give it a B minus. So I'm just slightly below you. It's funny. Mike from the Man Cave is there. He does my Faithful Dog show with me on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific. Good guy. He's a Browns fan, but he apparently likes the KJ Wright trade too, or not trade, but the hire for linebackers coach and assistant or defensive quality control. So that's outstanding.
There we go. My man Julius Calloway says, I'm getting D'Amico vibes from KJ, right? I kind of see that too. Yeah, former linebacker. He's really hyped up. Maybe he's going to follow the path of D'Amico. It's too early to tell. D'Amico is a heck of a coach. It's a big comparison, but we'll never know. We'll never know.
He's bald.
Yeah. Former linebacker turned linebacker coach. So there's some similarities there for sure. Yeah. But D'Amico, that's a damn good coach.
I mean, D'Amico was a good linebacker, but I'd say KJ Wright was a better linebacker. Would you?
You think so? You think KJ was better?
I don't know. I mean, D'Amico was awfully good.
They're both dogs, man.
Maybe I'm just because he was part of LOB with Bobby Wagner. I mean, Bobby Wagner was definitely better, but I don't know. That'd be an interesting question for let's ask the audience who they.
What do you guys think? You think D'Amico was? Don't think about coaching. Take away coaching from your mindset. Yeah. Was D'Amico a better linebacker than KJ Wright? I don't know. I think he was. Okay. I think he was. I
think that's just
I'm not saying KJ was. KJ was a very good player. KJ was a very good player, but that's a good question. Chat, let us know. What do you guys think with that answer? D'Amico Ryans versus KJ Wright as a linebacker. Who's the better player? I don't know. It's a good question. It could go either way. Let's see. 50-50 says Red Jet for Ryans and KJ. She didn't want to make a decision. She goes 50-50. Duncan says, I hope the 49ers can sign Willie Gay Jr. if the Chiefs don't bring him in. Maybe. 49ers media, 50-50.
Onshall.
Oh, they're
I'm actually taking these as wins, by the way.
Yeah, I guess you can take it as
as soon as I said it, you said, I was like, oh, maybe I was way off on that.
Yeah, maybe 50-50. Okay. It's 50-50, ladies and gentlemen. Man. So speaking of 50-50, Ted, let's move on to the next topic. So if you're watching the media, we know free agency is pretty much a week away, right? A week away. Now, over the weekend, rumors start bubbling over, especially on the weekends during the off season. Like Saturday, there's really nothing to post. Sunday, there's no game. So these rumors just start coming out of the woodworks, especially when it gets closer to, free agency, when it gets closer to the draft. All these weird reports come out. So this weekend, Dan Graziano of ESPN said, if the 49ers can't reach a agreement with Brandon Ayuk, they're going to trade him. I mean, it makes sense, right? That's basically any player. If the 49ers if any team can't, reach an agreement with the player, he's a trade candidate. So this was a rumor that circulated around, social media. And to me, I was like, whatever. It's just basically a statement that anybody can say, right? I mean, it's one of those things. The 49ers, they're trying to get him. And then yesterday, after that, a couple hours later on the NFL Combine, rap sheet, Ian Rappaport says the 49ers are expected to work on a contract extension for Brandon Ayuk after free agency. So that was a little bit more of a definitive, like, hey, look, the 49ers want him. They want to make him part of their team. And we know John Lynch last week said the same thing, like, hey, we want him to be part of this team. But there's rumors that are going to speculate. But Ian Rappaport basically said what John Lynch said is, hey, we're going to make it work. But he kind of gave a time frame after free agency. Now, we don't know how soon after free agency. In my opinion, hopefully it's sooner rather than later, because I hate when they wait too long. Now, today, we got some news that might actually help that situation kind of circulate. So today, breaking news in the morning, Mike Evans, he re-signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 2 years, $52 million with $35 million guaranteed. This guy is one of the best wide receivers, of our generation. This guy, he puts up 1,000 yards with nobody at quarterback, basically. It's crazy. But that is nice to know how much he's getting paid. 2 years, over $50 million. That's going to kind of set the market here now. And I'm sure Brandon Ayuk likes that number. About a week or so ago, it was wasn't necessarily reported, but it was projected from Spotrac that Brandon Ayuk's contract should be about $23 million. So with Mike Evans getting what he got, what do you think this does for Brandon Ayuk? And are you pretty confident they'll get the job done?
I mean, I think it makes it more likely that he'll get that 23. I don't think he's going to get 26 because it's not a 5-year deal that Mike Evans signed. It's a 2-year deal. And typically you'll see higher numbers like you did with Tyreek and, various wide receivers, or even the Lane Johnson extension where he got like well over $30 million for 1 year. But you're not going to get that on a 5-year deal. The longer the deal, usually the lower the number is. So I would expect we'd sign Brandon to a 5-year deal. And I think 23, which is about what Debo got, maybe a little more than Debo, or maybe 24, but I don't think you'll see 25 or 26.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll make it to 25, especially if it's a 5-year deal. I don't know if they're going to be able to get a 5-year. I'm sure the 49ers would like to ink it out to 5 years so they can throw some incentives and stretch it out. That's what they do. But if it's Brandon Ayuk, 4 maybe, I think he's going to try to go for that 3-year route. He is 26 years old. 3 years would take him to about 29 years old, and he can go for one more big-time contract, right? And maybe squeeze out another 2-3 year contract. So I feel like that's where Brandon Ayuk is going to try to go.
So just like Debo then.
Yeah, like Debo. Yeah, I think he's learned a lot from Debo too. I think if he has anybody really to kind of follow in the footsteps, somebody that's mentored him, it's Debo. So I'm sure he's talking to him. I'm sure he's trying to figure out what he did in his terms of contract, negotiation. So we'll see. I just think that the 49ers need to get this done earlier. I hate when every year they have a big contract. I mean, that's what they do. They get these homegrown players, they draft them, and they do a great job. They develop them, and then contract comes, and they got to pay them. But, a lot of times they do it towards the end, off season, training camp's coming up. And I feel like the players just get off to a bad start because they're not going to go out and risk an injury while they're training if they're waiting for a contract. So I understand that. So I hope for the 49ers' sake that they can get this job done sooner rather than later. That's my only gripe. Like, just get it done earlier. I'm sure they're going to get it paid. I don't listen to the rumors. Brandon Ayuk's going to be trade. I don't think the 49ers are going to trade him. Now, you'd be dumb to think that they're not listening to situations, to trade rumors or to trade offers. That's the front office. That's part of it. It's due diligence season. Teams you're going to call, you're going to at least hear them out. But I think the 49ers are going to stay pat with Brandon Ayuk because a lot of people this weekend in the combine, there's so many good receivers. Maybe the 49ers trade up, this and that. None of those receivers are going to come in right away and be able to do or replicate what Brandon Ayuk did. And, the 49ers, especially at wide receiver, that is a very hard position to crack on this roster.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I hope we get the deal done before the draft because it's obviously a very deep wide receiver draft. I think I've mentioned to you before in the past, like I really hope that if we do get a first for Brandon Ayuk, that, like I said, I'm not looking to trade him, but if it comes to that and we do trade him, we get a first-round pick for him. I hope we don't use that on a wide receiver because I don't want to have a, DeForest Buckner, Javon Kinlaw scenario 2.0. Use a later pick. It's a deep draft for wide receivers, unless you think your pick is worthy of Xavier Worthy, I guess, because that's some other news that's come out.
Oh yeah, what a fun! You guy ran a 2 or a 4.2140. That's crazy. He set the record. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That guy's fast, but can he block? How's his hands? That's the question. Like
$165. I'm not thinking too well.
Yeah, I don't know about that. He's so fast.
But he can take the top off of defense, so that's what we've been missing forever.
That's true.
That's sort of like Deshaun Jackson type player, right? I mean,
that's true. It's tough, man. I just don't think any of these receivers can come in right away and replace Brandon Ayuk right away in year one. Maybe in a year or two. But
and I guess Danny Gray will get one more crack at it too. So
make or break for Danny Gray, my man. This is make or break off season for this guy. He might not crack the roster, Ted. I don't know. We'll see. Now, Brandon Ayuk, though, I think $23 million a year is fair. I mean, you can argue he should get paid more as the fourth option, got back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving yards. I mean, this guy was fantastic. Big catches. He made some of the big plays this year. So it's going to be interesting. I just hope they get it done early. Now, you said if the 49ers do, again, I don't think it's going to, but we got to entertain it. If they trade Brandon Ayuk, you don't want him to take a receiver. Who
with that position? I mean, we should pick one later in the draft.
No, I'm saying, let's say they get, I don't know, I'm just throwing a hypothetical. Let's say they trade him and they get number 15 pick, and that's a pretty damn good pick. 15th pick in the first round. Who are we taking? What position are we taking?
Offensive tackle.
Okay, I like it. Yeah, I agree. Get an elite offensive tackle because 31 to 15, that's a big difference in the talent you're going to get in at offensive line. And that's why I think if we stay put at 31, honestly, I don't know if we use it as a tackle because is that tackle first round worthy, or could you get a guy that maybe slid a little at another position that's going to be like a superstar? I don't know. It's tough, man. Like last week, Mel Kiper, I know Mel Kiper doesn't get these right, but he said Chop Robinson would be the pick for the 49ers at 31. Now,
He's a
after his
fast DN.
combine,
We've been needing our D Ford replacement forever.
yeah.
So.
Now, during his combine, Chop literally, he boosted his stock. So he's not going to be at 31. But I'm just saying, imagine if he's there at 31. That'd be a hard person to pass at 31. And you're right. They absolutely need another edge rusher. I know Niner fans don't like to hear that, but they do need depth in defensive line. And man, Chop and Bosa, come on. Crazy.
No doubt about it. And then for offensive line, I was looking at, I mean, obviously Alt will probably be gone by 15, but there's the guy from Oregon State, the tackle, who's very athletic, who they like a lot. I forget his name, but I think he might be the number 2 tackle in the draft. He might be gone by 15, but if he's there, that would be my pick, I think.
Absolutely. Get one of the top guys, top 2 tackle. That's amazing because you need a right tackle. And there's going to be a day where Trent Williams retires, Ted. And I don't know what the plan is. Do you get the top tackle now, prepare for the worst in the future, and then you can move a guy to left tackle? Or do you wait till Trent's gone? That's a big topic, too, because, yeah, I know Trent's coming back next year. He said he is. Now, when he's gone, what the hell are the 49ers going to do? Because I was thinking about it today. Jason Kelce retired, right? That was the big news earlier today. Jason Kelce, Hall of Fame center for the Eagles. It reminded me of when the 49ers unfortunately lost Joe Staley. He retired. Joe Staley retired, and I was like, oh, man, he was the heart and soul of this team. Kind of like how Kelce was the heart and soul of that Eagles team. The 49ers, they fucking got so lucky, and they were able to get Trent Williams, generational left tackle, to replace Joe Staley, generational left tackle, for like a cheese sandwich. It was amazing how they were able to do that. Can they do the same thing for Trent Williams when he leaves? I don't know, man. We got lucky on that. So I agree with you. They got to get a quality tackle.
You know who's available?
Who's that?
And probably too expensive, but Tyron Smith from the Cowboys got released. So
yeah.
He's a very quality left tackle.
He is.
Very, very quality.
Yeah.
But would he play right tackle until Trent retires? That's the other question.
That's the other thing. Was somebody going to play out of position? I mean, although if you're that good of a tackle, you could probably make it happen, but we'll see. Ed Gahn says draft picks are unproven until it's time to prove your worth on the field. It's always a gamble, no matter what. He's true, because you never know. And that's why trading Brandon Ayuk and hoping you're banking on receiver doesn't always happen that way. Like sometimes you are literally taking a risk. 49ers, they traded 3 first-rounders a couple years back, took Trey Lance. It didn't really work out, much to your chagrin, Ted. I know we sat there. We were at training camp. We were pulling for the guy. Didn't work out. Brock Purdy, 7th-round pick. You just never know how these players are going to pan out. The draft is truly a gamble, and if you can hit, you're going to look like a genius. If you don't, you're going to look like Trent Baalke. So
if you hit 50% of the time, half of the picks, you're doing great.
Absolutely.
As a top GM.
Absolutely. Yeah. My man, Julius Callaway says Tristan Wirfs trade. Now, this would be a guy I would love to see the 49ers make.
Cornerstone. And
yeah.
He's still pretty young, too, because he was.
Brandon Ayuk, Tristan Wirfs, run it. What do you think?
Oh, man. Same draft and same draft with Kinlaw, too.
They could have got Tristan Wirfs that year.
I know. We traded the pick to the Bucs.
I remember. I thought it was going to be Tristan Wirfs. I had the graphic all set up. And I was like, what do we do? They traded up, took Tristan Wirfs, then we drafted Javon Kinlaw. I remember that was sickening. Crazy. Man.
Pretty wild. Especially after that video of him jumping out of the pool.
Yeah.
It's like you just don't see linemen doing stuff like that.
He's a dog, man. He's amazing. So let's see. So we got over again, free agency. We talked about Brandon Ayuk. We talked about all the coaches, which are, up. There's some we like, some we don't. Now, the other thing is there's some players we like. There's some players we don't like coming back to the Niners. There's a lot of free agents. This weekend, there was a report also from Dan Graziano from ESPN. He says that the 49ers have some interest in bringing back Chase Young, but on a 1-year deal, most likely, a 1-year prove-it deal at that. And, basically bringing him back for a discount. And let's see, I think I have the article here somewhere. Yeah, so Dan Graziano says basically you might end up having to take a 1-year prove-it deal from the 49ers or someone else. But that's basically what they think, that if they're going to bring back Chase Young, the 49ers probably aren't going to spend big money. They're going to probably try to get him back for a cheaper deal, maybe incentive-laden deal. Would you take Chase Young back? What do you think?
Yeah, on an incentive deal, absolutely. But no big number and no big years. No,
Yeah.
he does need to prove it to us and anybody else that wants to.
Absolutely.
And, see how much you like playing with Nick Bosa. I know you enjoyed it. Put your, money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
See.
Yeah. I mean, it was nice to see him play with Bosa. That was cool. Like when it first happened, I was hyped out of my mind. The Jacksonville game, he made us all believers. I was like, oh my God. It was a good first impression. And he was smart. If you think about it, he's like, all right, it's my first game. I have to show out. And it was amazing. It was like, after that, we were so blinded by the hype and that great feeling we had. Like, it warmed our hearts. I was like, oh, man, Nick Bosa and Chase Young. Oh, my God, they look amazing together. Rest of the season, he kind of coasted by. And then the Super Bowl, he tore it up in the Super Bowl. So it was like,
Lions game too. He wasn't great in the Lions game, but he at least had 3 tackles for losses.
Yeah, that's true. But it was mainly those 2 games where you're like, okay, you have,
and
they were the 2 bigger games, the first game
Yeah.
and then the Super Bowl. You're like, so if that's your memory, you remember that good stuff. You're like, oh man, he was good. So he did a smart thing. He put some good film on the 2 games he needed to most. But the rest of the season was kind of like, whatever. I don't know. I think if it was a cheap deal, 1-year incentive-laden deal, yeah, I wouldn't mind it. But if it's multiple years, $13 million, I don't want him. I don't want him.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Peace. Any other free agents that you want to see this team bring back? We got quite a bit.
Gibson, but I don't think that's going to happen.
You think he retires?
I think so. He tried to last offseason, didn't he? So
yeah, he did. Javon Kinlaw.
I want Kinlaw back. Yeah, I'm on record.
1 year deal or multi-year?
Kind of
deal?
same thing. 1-year prove it deal. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Juwan Jennings, I think they're going to make sure they keep him for a couple of years. I think you give him a 2-year deal. I think locking up Juwan for another 2 years would be smart. I like him. Good veteran, the junkyard dog type guy. He's just a veteran that he's so good at blocking, clutch guy. I think you got to keep Juwan Jennings. Everybody else, I'm kind of like, I'm not worried if we lose him. Maybe bring back Clelin Ferrell. Hopefully his knees healed up because he did have surgery. I like Clelin Ferrell. He was a solid player this year for the 49ers. He was really good at setting the edge. So we missed that in that run defense in the playoffs. So I think if I had to bring anybody back, Clelin Ferrell, maybe Kinlaw on a 1-year prove it deal, and absolutely Juwan Jennings. You got to make sure you sign that man 2-year deal.
Maybe Randy Gregory if he'd come back cheap. He wasn't bad. He just didn't really do a lot. So
yeah, he's older. I think you can get a younger guy.
I think you're right.
Him though, but yeah, I wouldn't hate it if they brought back Randy Gregory. He was solid when he, got his moments here and there. But he is a little older, so I think you can get the same production out of a younger guy and maybe open it up for what's the guy out the rookie they got from Georgia last year, Robert Beal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I liked him. Give him more opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That could be our speed rusher. Maybe we already have him. Yeah,
maybe we'll see. But taking a big leap from first year to second year without playing that many snaps is kind of. I don't want to. That's what happened with Drake Jackson. Everybody thought he was going to be able to come in and play 300 snaps. It just wasn't the case.
Guilty as charged.
He blew his load on that first game, the Steelers game. 3 sacks.
Yeah.
Led the NFL. I was like, oh my God, Drake Jackson season. And then we didn't hear from him. Then he went on a milk carton.
Yeah. Well, I think he was injured too. Was part of it. So
yeah, that's true.
And he finally got that surgery in December. So
he had quad surgery. I talked to his dad during the Super Bowl. He said he's doing well. He had to get surgery. And then I was messaging with Drake a couple of days ago on the DM last week when I saw the news, and he posted it. And I was like, hey, man, hope surgery went good. He's like, yeah, surgery was good, man. Appreciate it. He goes, just got to get back in the lab. So hopefully he can get himself right.
Hope so, too. That'd be nice to have him work out.
Yeah. Let's see. Anything else going on here? I think that's pretty much the big stories on the Niners. I mean, again, like you said, there's not too much going on, but there was a little bit that we had to address. Anything else that you want to cover over here, my man?
I mean, there was just that Xavier Worthy, the 4.2 140, but we already talked about that. I can't really think of anything else too notable other than that it seems like there's a lot of good wide receivers in this draft. So
A lot of good wide receivers, and there's a lot of legacy players in the 49ers. Luke McCaffrey, Frank Gore Jr., and Brendan Rice. If it's up to the 49er fans, they would draft all three of those guys and make them a red and gold jersey right away. You know, Brendan Rice, it would be fun to see him with the Niners. It would be cool to see Luke McCaffrey, who actually outran his brother at the 40. And Frank Gore, you know, maybe he could take a flyer on one of those guys. I mean, are they needs? No. Do we necessarily have to have them? No. Before the culture, Ted, you bring those three guys in, it would actually be pretty cool stories.
Yeah, I would love it. Yeah, it was cool seeing the Luke McCaffrey superimposed onto Christian, and they're like right in the same position as they finish. It's just Luke is just a scotch ahead of him. It was like, wow, they're like little clones of each other. So yeah, and I thought he was supposed to be a late round pick, but then I thought I saw somebody recently say more like maybe 3rd or 4th round. So much for the bargain on Luke McCaffrey. I guess the word's out.
Yeah, I saw that too. I was like, well, people are projecting him like 3rd, 4th, maybe some people because of the combine. But again, sometimes you get a little overzealous with the combine. I could still see him being a little later round pick, but it was pretty cool. You know, definitely he has bragging rights over his brother now. Holidays, he's gonna probably hold that over. Hey man, I ran a faster 40 than you at the combine. I can imagine that. But what a family, man. The athletic gene in that family is fantastic, man. All of the guys are super athletes. And actually, Luke played quarterback before he switched to wide receiver. Did you know that? He was a quarterback.
I did know that.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Then he's been a receiver for 2 years with about 1,700 yards and 19 TDs, which is
not too shabby. You drop him in the slot.
Yeah. And then I did see also, we brought up Frank Gore Jr. He was saying basically that he's a little bit different style than Pops. He's got a little more burst and shake and bake.
Yeah.
And he's not so much of a run you over kind of power back like Frank Gore was. So kind of interesting. You know, he is Frank's son, but he's not Frank's clone. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
He has his own style. And honestly, that probably fits better with Kyle's scheme than Frank Gore 1.0 because Frank, you know, Kyle likes that speed, that one cut and go, a la Mostert. Not that Frank Gore Jr. is as fast as Mostert or anything like that, but you know, that same A-chain, that same sort of idea, I think. So
yeah, no, I think he kind of fits that mold a little bit more than, definitely Frank Gore was that power back guy. He just run your ass over. So pretty cool though. I thought that was fun to see in the combine. But it's kind of crazy when you think about it. Next week, free agency, and then we're almost at the draft. We're getting close. Like this offseason, flying by, Ted, flying by. So as we know, next Monday when we talk, it'll be the start of the legal tampering period. So legal tampering period starts next week. So actually, we'll probably get like some preliminary deals. We might get some breaking news next week. I want you to give me one bold prediction for next week. So when we talk about it, we can be like, oh, you were right. So give me one bold prediction for free agency for next week.
I'm sticking with it from before, even though I like your one that you said right after me better. I still think mine's more realistic. So I'm going to stay with Lavonte David.
Okay.
Signing for linebacker because as great as these linebackers can be in this draft class, you know, none of them are probably going to be Dre Greenlaw this year in 2024. And neither is Lavonte David. Let's be honest. You know, he's sort of getting towards the end, but he is a vet. He knows what the hell he's doing. I think that makes some sense. You then right after that brought up Azeez Al-Shaair, and I would really love Azeez Al-Shaair. But I don't think we're going to be able to afford them. So
I don't think we can afford it.
I get my hopes up and get I've had enough of hopes getting dashed recently, so I'm trying to go with lower expectations here.
Yeah, that's true. Bold prediction for me. Maybe I should stick with the Azeez. I'll give you another one. I think the 49ers, I don't know who yet, but I think they're going to sign a big name cornerback next week. I think we're going to hear a big name cornerback signed to the 49ers next week. I don't know the name yet. I don't know yet, but I think next week we're going to hear, holy smokes, breaking news. The 49ers have just signed cornerback. I don't know who to a 2-3 year deal. I think we're going to get a cornerback and an offensive lineman in free agency next week. That's my thoughts. That's it. Maybe
We're going to get J.C. Jackson to go with.
Oh, okay. J.C. Jackson, nickel corner extraordinaire.
I'm kidding.
Let's go. Nickel. We got J.C. Jackson and an offensive lineman. Free agency about to hit.
You know, a lot of people wanted J.C. Jackson instead of Mooney Ward back then. And then
now we can have them both
for the second time since then. And I was like, remember when everybody got so mad that we took Mooney Ward for $3 million less than J.C. Jackson? I was like, good times.
I remember that. That's true. Oh,
yeah.
We were going to sign him.
No, I don't think anybody wants him now.
Bro, that's the big bold move next week. J.C. Jackson to the Niners.
No. That's it. Because he was on the top of the spot.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's my bold pick. And they're also going to sign an offensive lineman. Let's see what happens next week.
Let's hope for a Dory Jackson, though. I think that, or Kendall Fuller. I think those guys are kind of who would be interesting too? Because he was a high pick and is kind of washed out. Some Jeff Okudah.
Okay, yeah, he definitely is.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting. I can't wait for free agency, man. I want the 49ers to go crazy splash.
Not J.C. Jackson. I got it wrong. Adoree Jackson. There we go.
Adoree. You want Adoree? Yeah, I'll take J.C. Jackson, baby.
All right.
J.C. in the slot. All right. We'll see what happens, Ted. Anything else going on this week for you, channel wise?
Let's see here. I have Mariah coming on Wednesday at 3, and Mike from the Man Cave, who was just on in the chat here earlier. We do Faithful Dogs Thursdays at 2. I don't know. We'll see about Bash has been kind of taking some time off, so we'll see how he's feeling this Friday. But we'll go from there. And I got some other feelers out, but nothing locked down just yet.
All right, we'll see, man. Every day is a day for me to keep rolling, so no days off for your boy. We'll be back next Monday with Ted, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe we'll be talking about some breaking news. We got breaking news. I don't know. We'll see. But in the meantime, you guys have a good rest of your week. Take care. Appreciate the support. Make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to both channels. All that good stuff. Have a great one. 49ers. Making some moves next week. We'll see. We'll talk about it. Have a great day, baby. Bang, bang. Niner gang.
Peace. Go Niners.